What an awesome brand, Jooicy Tits Vodka. And what I like about that is I'm a marketing person. I'm a visionary. So when someone sees my brand, I want them to think about what it is I'm doing and what my cause is about, or just simply grab their attention. And your brand absolutely does that. You know, where did this whole concept of Jooicy Tits Vodka come about? Tell us that story.
So back in good old college days, shocker, I was at a frat party and took my first shot of Fireball, and it tasted like Big Red gum. And growing up, my grandpa always had Big Red and Juicy Fruit. And so I take the shot of Fireball and I go, it tastes like Big Red. And just to play on words, play on opposites, I said they need the opposite of Fireball, they need Juicy Tits. I was with a group of people and they said, wait, that's a great name. And I said, really? They said, that's a great name. So I took pen to paper in the coming days and I realized how I could spell it, Jooicy, and the O is the little boobies. And I said, wait, this is actually kind of cute. Go for it. You have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain, and even if you fail,
you can always get a job.
Don't be afraid to fail. It's number one. Failing is great. Failing is powerful. You learn so much through failure. And then you build the confidence to know that, hey, I tried it and look, I'm still here. I made it through and look at all this shit I learned.
The faster you fail, the more you grow.
Yeah, you know, I have nieces and nephews now, and I just think you have to foster what it is that makes your child shine. And so, you know, if it is something as simple as that, like my brothers, they were always big into building everything and anything, both engineers. So it's one of those things that, again, it's in you young. It's just a matter of the opportunity to foster it, nurture it, and eventually, if you're lucky, you know, have it as a career.
Dude, we all have the best time ever to start a small business.
If I'm not gonna be 100% in, I'm not gonna do it.
Come on, man, just be yourself.
Yeah,
and just show up as yourself.
if you don't realize what I'm really about, I'm about freedom, family.
Lauren, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
This is fun. I like to have good people. And what an awesome brand, Jooicy Tits Vodka. And what I like about that is I'm a marketing person. I'm a visionary. So when someone sees my brand, I want them to think about what it is I'm doing and what my cause is about, or just simply grab their attention. And your brand absolutely does that. And not to mention, we were just doing little mixers with the coconut seltzer. It's delicious.
Thank you so much.
And you're a hustler, and you're motivated, and you have big dreams, and you're not giving up on it. And that's why I wanted to interview you. So
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you grew up in Westfield, New Jersey.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your childhood. Tell us about Lauren.
Childhood. Well, we were talking a little bit earlier, and I think wasn't planned, but a big piece of childhood for me was actually a leg injury as a child, and I had 5 surgeries. I couldn't play sports beyond pretty much 6th grade when the 2-mile run became part of everyone's, I guess, life, because everyone's playing sport. And I went the more kind of theater drama chorus route and hated it because it's not who I was. I was always competitive. I was always athletic. And then finally got to college and made friends with some of the guys on the men's lacrosse team, and they needed a manager. And I ended up kind of filling that void for the longest time of not having been part of a sports team. And we had an awesome run.
That's awesome.
And but back to childhood, I was always, always creative, always looking to have fun, on crutches going into kindergarten, dragging kids in, saying, come on, it'll be fun, come on, dragging them off their mom's leg. So, always had kind of the bug of, I guess, kind of leading in me. And
you always seem happy, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't ever seem like in a down mood, or you're always bubbly and having fun and conversating.
Yep.
So, oddly enough, we met through like Mark and Dave and Christine and all of these people that we met in the Children's Specialized Circle. And you actually went to Children's Specialized when you were a kid after having these surgeries.
Yep.
So it's just funny how life comes back full circle.
Full circle. And I was telling some of their team, it was physical therapy in particular. I still remember to this day, they had the most amazing therapists, most hands-on. And one of the repercussions of my leg injury was I had nerve damage, and my bone was broken for 3 days. No one knew. So the pain was so bad, my toes actually curled and got stuck. So part of my therapy was just getting the toes flat again. And I'll never forget this one awesome nurse, one of the exercises, they put this like colorful foam on a mirror, and you had to like make shapes and letters and numbers. And I remember it was so much fun, even though you were doing therapy. So
get your mind off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the weird things that you remember years later, but that was one of them.
Do you still have toe issues?
No, I don't.
That hurts. You ever like wake up in the middle of the night, you get the Charlie horse, or your toes curling?
No.
That was horrible. Damn. Well, that's a lot to go through. Obviously, it shows that you're tough and strong. And when you went to college, what'd you go for?
I went for design and entrepreneurship. I was undecided now that I think about it, and I fell into design and entrepreneurship because I was taking a lot of more creative electives. And
Did you like that in high school?
I
leading
always
up?
was more creative. I always loved the creative side of things, but I actually took an entrepreneurship 101 class because there was a kid I had a crush on who signed up for it, and I said, let me take that class. And the first day when the teacher was talking about business and creativity and creating ideas and companies and making money from things that you can create.
Like, this is for me.
I said, yeah, I think I always was this. I just didn't know this is what it was called. I was always the kid back to childhood who had, the lemonade stand, who was making jewelry, selling it at the end of my driveway because we lived across the street from an elementary school. So soccer games, jammed weekends, and I'm trying to hustle jewelry at the end of the driveway.
Isn't it crazy when you go back to like childhood? This is like something weird. Like I used to go into like A&P, which was a food store by us with my father, and there would be like 2 people on the front register. And I would be like, this could run so much more efficient. There's like 40 of us in line trying to get through 2 places. And again, obviously it's very logical, but I was like a 12-year-old kid kind of thinking this way already.
Yep.
And then as you grow and you start to utilize and tap into that flow state we were talking about earlier, it then starts to help you make money and chase down the things that you want. It's cool.
But I think it's interesting. I forget the exact age, but there's a statistic that your personality is defined by, I think you're like 8 or 9 years old. And when you look back to childhood, you're like, wait, I kind of always was this person. Or I had these attributes. They just didn't yet maybe have a chance to shine. Or, I look back and you think about school system. It's so regimented and so grade-based. And meanwhile, there could be kids that are a different form of genius. That's just not their genius.
Mark Zuckerberg or one of these guys. My son, I see it in him. Like the other day I'm laying on the edge of the couch. I'm like exhausted. It's like 8:30. He's supposed to be in bed already. I'm like letting him stay up. And we got this round wooden table on wheels, and it's got like a area underneath for like folded blankets. He's got the dinos up in there, and he's got gates with Legos on each side. And he was kind of mirroring Jurassic Park. He's like, Dad, here's the cages, and these are the walls, and he's got his Hess trucks, and those are the trucks that move the dinos. And you could see him putting it all together in his brain. And I'm like, man, I want to like help him continue to like grab that and run with that, whatever he's going to do with it. Hopefully not dinos. I want to grow up and I want to dig up dinos. I'm like, oh, damn.
But I think it's so key is I don't have kids, but I babysat for forever. And, I have nieces and nephews now. And I just think you have to foster what it is that makes your child shine. And so, if it is something as simple as that, like my brothers, they were always big into building everything and anything, both engineers. So it's one of those things that, again, it's in you young. It's just a matter of the opportunity to foster it, nurture it, and eventually, if you're lucky, have it as a career.
And sometimes I think parents accidentally push people away from it, right? Because they're like, you need to get good grades, and you need to go into the doctorate program, and you need to do this, do that. And we were talking earlier how like the academics have been like taken over, and they're really kind of more of like morphing these people into like the institutionalized like workforce versus that entrepreneurial brain. So like you're kind of being seasoned the whole time through elementary, high school, and then definitely in college nowadays, which is all types of reports and studies are out on that now. It's like it takes a special parent to kind of think outside the box and be okay getting judged. Right? Like we're not going to send our kid to elementary school. I pay $30,000 in property tax here in Wall. They're good schools supposedly. We're not going to send our kid there. We want them to go like tap into that stuff more and go see stuff, do stuff. And
they're going to learn that much more.
So anybody who watches this and hears this part of the conversation, like, lean into that, think outside the box. The traditional school system is, I think it's crumbling,
Right, but if that is where you are, nothing wrong with that, but I'd say outside of it, what can you do, again, to foster your child's gifts, or whether it's at home or a program, or go out of your way to drive the extra 30 minutes to take them to that, coding class or whatever it might be, because it's important.
Yeah, and again, I do believe that some people really enjoy school and they create an awesome life doing the college life than going to be some senior vice president at a corporation. It's just not what I needed, not what I think other people need.
Right.
So I want to make sure I'm not offensive there to anybody who loves college. Thanks for saving me.
All good.
That's how I get in trouble. Bad Ryan. So you have this entrepreneurial way about you. You're a competitor. You're hanging out. You're the manager of the guy's team. Where did this whole concept of Jooicy Tits Vodka come about? Tell us that story.
So back in good old college days, shocker, I was at a frat party and took my first shot of Fireball, and it tasted like Big Red gum. And growing up, my grandpa always had Big Red and Juicy Fruit. And so I take the shot of Fireball, and I go, it tastes like Big Red. And just to play on words, play on opposites, I said, they need the opposite of Fireball. They need Juicy Tits. I was with a group of people, and they said, wait, that's a great name. And I said, really? They said, that's a great name. So I took pen to paper in the coming days, and I realized how I could spell it, Jooicy, and the O is the little boobies. And I said, wait, this is actually kind of cute. And then for the longest time, it was a joke for 8 years. Went up to groups of men, groups of women, bartenders. Yo, you guys have Jooicy Tits Vodka back there? The ears perked up, people overheard, and wanted cases, shirts to work for me. And it got to the point where I said, this is 8 years of 9 out of 10 times positive feedback. So I have to figure out how to do this. And I personally drank vodka. And in doing my diligence of learning about the spirits industry, it's the most scalable, most profitable, easiest to produce of all the spirits. So I said, that sounds like a good starting point. And then we can always go from there. So that's how it started. It was a joke.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's how some of the, I think the best concepts out there start. Having some fun, just being creative, you know, some play on words.
And that's truly the whole point, is fun. You said it. We like to make people laugh and smile. And another piece of our brand, we donate to different breast cancer charities. So we like to say we party for a purpose.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. What are those brands that you support with the breast cancer?
Yeah, so we give to an amazing nonprofit right now called Move Over Breast Cancer. That's a woman named Paula Flory. She's a survivor herself. Now she drives a pink mobile resource van and salon around to women undergoing treatment, and basically brings non-clinical services to their doorstep. So if they need empowering head shaving, how to tie a scarf, fit them for a bra, drive them to a doctor's appointment, whatever that woman at that moment needs, she brings to them. And in addition to that, she brings an amazing community of survivors and thrivers, she calls them. So not only do these women have that immediate instant resource literally at their doorstep, but they then can be instantly part of a community of amazing women going through similar journeys.
It's a huge piece. And we were talking to the two wonderful young ladies last night from last week from Children's Specialized Hospital. And I'm like, you sharing your story is inspiring someone else right now. So to have like that whole community. She's in Jersey?
She's in Jersey. She's Princeton based. And I think true in terms of what you just said, community, and for people to not feel so alone, because everyone's journey is different, but to just know that you're not alone and someone else is going through it. And, you know, as you meet more and more people, especially in one room or in one community, you have that much more, I think, support.
Yeah.
Which is so
especially
important.
someone going through what you are going through or had gone through.
And then locally, it's not breast cancer related, but we recently started supporting Mary's Place by the Sea, which is an amazing entity. It's a retreat center for women undergoing or going through any type of cancer, to just get away from real life for a moment, get away from being a mom, get away from, you know, the stresses of day-to-day life, and just come and hit reset while they're doing everything on top of going through, you know, their illness and their journey. So
yeah, that's tough. Moms have such a tough job to begin with, and to be fighting a disease is, you know, horrific. And again, there's not enough just like public help out there for people going through any of this stuff, right? Even children's cancer, right? There's like very little funding from a government perspective for, you know, pediatric cancer. Yeah. We had a lady on a couple years ago. She has a organization called Live Like a Unicorn. Her daughter died of it was like a brain and spine tumor. She was 8. And the daughter started this charity prior to death and raised like a decent amount of money. And the mom was like, how do I not continue this, right? I'm gonna pour my life, my love for my daughter into this. And she was telling me some crazy stats on the lack of like help in that space. And so my point is, these people that go and organize this stuff by themselves and create a charity, and they could be there for that woman in the community going through something like that, it's pretty special. And you're there helping them because you're good people, and that's what matters.
Yeah, the least we can do.
So how did you get started, right? So a young girl's watching this, and, you know, I like to leave nuggets for people, right? I get like a couple good nuggets. Young girl has a makeup line, or she's trying to launch a liquor line, right? The first thing you're thinking is like, where do I get money, right? So how did you first start getting this up and running, getting a few bottles made, and all of that? So
I was incredibly fortunate that I have supportive parents who believed in me, believed in the idea of the product at that point. They made me put a pitch deck together, and basically the pitch of what it would cost to produce 3,024 bottles. I gave my presentation, and then they gave their blessing and gift of the money for the first production run.
That's awesome.
So I was, again, super fortunate. They're both incredible. very comfortable, successful in their 9-to-5 corporate jobs, which is great for them. But I'm the black sheep of the family, the entrepreneurial, child that I'm very tough to parent. My dad says because it's just uncomfortable in terms of they don't know the advice to always give to someone who's not on that path.
They get afraid for you. They want the best for you.
Of course.
Right? My parents, when I first went into finance, were like, you got kicked out of high school. How are you going to find success in finance? I'm like, oh, thanks, Mom. She meant nothing bad by it, but like they're afraid for us. Like, hey, you can come work for us. You're so smart, Lauren. You can go make X, Y, and Z, work in an industry like mine. But again, they don't realize like we can't. You
can't work for someone else. You try. I've tried. It's not within you, and you're meant for bigger, and you owe it. I think. If anyone, listening has that entrepreneurial bug or that idea or that makeup brand or that liquor, whatever it is, you owe it to yourself. Life is so short and nothing's guaranteed, and you so owe it to yourself to do that. So, quick backstory, before Jooicy, I actually had my own handbag brand. And the whole way that came to be was I was literally in a amazing job in fashion. I wanted to get into fashion. I had a temp to perm job at Gucci in New York City. So I was supporting the director of store operations and literally sitting with the top dog in every angle possible weekly in their meetings. Like amazing learning for fashion industry, wanting to get into it. Ended up this temp to perm role is not coming to fruition on the anticipated timeline. And on the back burner, I had a patented wrist wallet that I didn't have the time to nurture. Fashion and district was shut down by the time we were getting out of work. And the fashion industry is very much see, touch, feel, and build relationships. So I was on this fence of like, do you stay, do you go, do you stay, do you go? And my best friend at the time, her good family friend's daughter was 21 years old, had just gotten job offers at 3 or 4 of the big banks in New York City, was out celebrating with her sister, and ended up tripping into the street and getting hit and killed by a taxi.
Wow.
And we went to where she passed away, and I'll never forget, it was so vivid that it could have been any one of my friends or I out on a night. And I think in that moment I knew this girl had everything going for her. Her whole life was ahead of her, and like that, it changed. And that's when I literally, a couple days later, put my 2 weeks notice in for my temp to perm job and dove into my cuff at the time, because I said nothing's guaranteed. And again, you owe it to yourself. So maybe it's not a pivotal moment that, is gonna hit everyone that way, but for me, that's what it was. And I always echo back to that and say, go for it. You have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain. And even if you fail,
you can always get a job.
Don't be afraid to fail. It's number one. Failing is great. Failing is powerful. You learn so much through failure. And then you build the confidence to know that, hey, I tried it and look, I'm still here. I made it through and look at all this shit I learned.
The faster you fail, the more you grow.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say don't be afraid. Trust yourself and take that first step, because that first step is usually the hardest. And next thing you know, there's power in the baby steps. So even if it's you buy the domain name, you get the Instagram handle.
Get some excitement going.
Yeah, just get your logo out. Like that's in my opinion the best, most exciting parts of the start of something. That's like the best part of the whole.
That's great advice, because I'm the worst. I'm like 0 to 100. I'm like, we got to go from 0 to $10 million in revenue, and if we don't do it, we're losers. That's really good advice.
But I would also say, don't sell yourself short in knowing where you want to go. Dream big. You're your own worst enemy in terms of you're the one who's going to hold yourself back. So if you don't think you're going to get to this point, or if why are you saying you want a makeup brand that's only going to be local to New Jersey when you could be nationwide?
Yeah, you're convincing your subconscious of that.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing, is know where you want to go, have those big dreams, have those big goals, and then you just chunk it down day by day, baby steps, and next thing you know, those baby steps compound. And
I've been to a bunch of personal development stuff over the last 18 years. I was a reckless kid, kicked out of high school. I'm still misunderstood at times, but trust me, my edges are much more rounded nowadays. And I think you need to work on your blind spots, and a lot of people don't. And there's elements of it of like, no, I'll never change, that's me, and like, you're not gonna get me to change for your insecurities or, how you see the world. And there's other elements you're like, wow, that was really good advice. And I remember at a couple of these, and this even came up again recently, like 1 in 20 people, like if you're sitting in a room with 20 people, 1 may not be there next year if you guys get back together. And it's like, I got young kids, I got a wife, so like during COVID, that really sat with me. Like, there's people dropping dead, you see the ticker, right? How honest that thing was, I don't know. But you see people's lives, right? Every new life that was ticked up, that was a dream lost. The way they looked at it. I'm like, that's crazy. And that's when I launched the podcast. I said, nah, I'm going for this. And most people don't realize how much scrutiny I was under. I have an investment license. I got security attorneys fucking calling my phone. I got very nervous partners that are like, Ryan, you can't say that shit. I'm like, I just did. What are you gonna do? Right? And it was a lot of work for me to, get through all that stuff. And now I am a national brand. I mean, we are all over, not only in the US, we have fans in Canada, Australia, Sweden. What was the other one we found randomly recently? That Latin America. There's a bunch of Dominicans or something.
Definitely down there,
yeah. Anyway, we've grown this little thing in my backyard where I'm talking shit about business ownership, into something that we're not done. I just got invited on my first TV show on Real Voice America.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to be like a thank you. I'm going to be like a regular guest.
That's awesome.
On this guy's show twice a month. And I'm like, I don't know, should I do this? Should I be doing that? But again, I look fear in the face and I'm like,
yeah,
fuck it. I guess I'm the guy that's supposed to do this.
It's so funny. I was just at a women's networking event today, and she was actually the first CEO of Barstool was presenting. And I caught the snippet end of it, and she had a diagram up on the board, and she said it's taped in the bathroom for her kids as they were growing up, and it's the different levels of basically pushing yourself to different boundaries. And one is the fear, where you're holding yourself back, you're making excuses, all these things. Right beyond that, I forget if it's growth. Growth's the last one. There's one in between that's the positive direction. You're headed towards growth, and then you ultimately reach that growth. So like you said, to be afraid is a good thing. You just have to get over that hump. And then that's when I think some of the other magic starts to happen.
I think fear is fake. It's an emotion. And I'm not saying people don't get afraid, but like the more you lean into it, the more great things that come about. When you're uncomfortable, that's where the growth happens.
Right.
And sometimes it's like a little longer uncomfortable. You're like, when am I going to get to that next notch, please?
Right.
This is painful, but that's that's how you find success.
But think about how much time you spend worrying, which you could spend thinking, what if it goes right?
No.
What if it goes great? What if it's better than I expected?
It's a flip of a switch.
Just again, it's perspective. You have to be, positive, and I think that's easier said than done, especially, the entrepreneurial journey, or to have, an idea that's a little bit different, or push a boundary, or be a little bit polarizing. You know that, but you got to stick to your guns, and you get through it, and that's how some of the best things ever are born.
I would say that Fireside America and my brand is slightly polarizing at times. But what I will say about that is I've met some of the greatest people like yourself, who we think a lot alike about a lot of things in this country, in this world. And I've gotten more business than I ever did. Yeah, you kind of look like you shut off 50% of the population speaking out about what it is that you care about, but you get that many more stronger relationships with the people that think like you do, right? So the person that come up to you were telling a story about a lady, crying about the bottle, Jooicy Tits Vodka. I forget what she was saying, but like, who's gonna come up and say like, this is something bad? Like, who?
I think it's a bothered I honestly, genuinely, I felt bad after the interaction. I felt bad for her. Because it's just, you have to be not a disturbed person, but obviously hurt in some way that's acceptable to you, to go hurt someone else who did nothing to you. And down to the fact that I was telling the story, she took a picture and said something about PR, and I said, there's no reason. Yes, you can take a picture. I said, but there's no reason to not be nice. And I think that's one of the things, and I always say, when I speak about branding or products, it's very much an extension of yourself, right? She's very much an extension of me. And what are our values? Because that's what's going to echo into our brand. And, as we grow, become your core values of a company, and leadership-wise, what you're preaching. So kindness is a big piece. I always say she has big boobies, she has a bigger heart. So to have someone instantly attack what's a pillar of what makes us who we are, and who I know in my heart that I am, I think it's such a beyond personal. If she's coming at my brand, it's like personal on your character.
Yeah, I know.
So I think that was the thing that bothered me. And again, she's obviously hurt people, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's,
Well, look at all the people hurting Elon's cars.
Yeah.
They're like disturbed individuals.
Crazy.
Like the one guy came up, he pooped his
I
pants
saw it.
and grabbed it out and put it on the car. Like, what? Like, what's wrong with people? And you got to be able to take the high road. For a little while, I like to fight him. Because, I know I could win, you don't know who I am. You're speaking out of your ass. But like you said earlier, I could be directing that brain power to the next thing.
Right, and it's one of those things. Is it even worth it necessarily? And you know, honestly, at that point too, it's like you kind of want the lady out of the way so I can sell to people who do want it.
Yeah.
You know.
That's so funny. That was like probably one out of like
One
how
out of
many
thousands.
people? Yeah.
But the sad thing is, in terms of the people who, you know, the count on really one hand out of the 3 years we've been doing this that are like that offended by it, they've all been women, which is unfortunate because it's a super male-dominated industry, which I have no problem with. I love guys, love them.
You like to compete too.
Yeah, but you'd think that women would support other women in an industry knowing it's male-dominated, and here you are with a product that's supporting women in every sense, the breast cancer piece, the entrepreneurial piece, you know, and to have, you know, it be 100% women who haven't resonated with it. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's weird.
It is weird, but.
So how are you continuing to market the brand, right? I know a lot of times we can easily say, I'm doing social media. What are some of the other stuff? And again, I know you go out to a lot of events.
Yep.
You know, what is your thought process on it all?
So ours is, obviously there's power in local, because it's a lot of people who know people. So beyond the networking of, you know, a typical networking event, it's you're hanging at a bar and you meet someone and they know the owner of XYZ, and you have that warm intro to accounts that we're trying to knock doors down on.
Yeah.
But we have a billboard going up, which is our first big form of marketing.
I love it. I'm going to be able to drive past it.
Yeah. We're going to see how that works. We couldn't actually put the word tits on a billboard, so we had to be a little creative in our marketing around that. But I had fun with that. And we also have a lot of touch points in different venues that give us the opportunity. So a couple bars locally, they have something as simple as a bar mat out that someone can see, and then they, wait, what is that? And again, the name's edgy enough,
grabs your
you're
eyes.
like, wait, we'll do tastings. We have a little setup, and people do like double take. Wait, did I read that right? I said, yeah, you read that right. You want to try some Jooicy Tits Vodka?
Yeah.
So you get the shock value.
You know, every
with the
dumb
name.
guy goes in there like, pretty girl, Jooicy Tits Vodka. Like, yeah, I'll take a shot. Too easy. We're too easy. The other thing too, I was just going to say, damn, I just drew a blank now. We're on the topic of...
We were talking marketing, tastings.
Marketing. So I have a platform for you.
Okay.
You can go right on Fireside Media.
Oh,
We got
love
3
it.
to 5 million views on our news graphics. We'll gladly put Jooicy Tits
Awesome.
Vodka at the bottom. You tell us how many you want. We'll work out a price.
Perfect.
And we'll push it out there as
Love
far
it.
as we can.
And it's funny you say that, because we can ship direct to consumer through our Florida distributor in 47 states. So I love it.
That's another thing I wanted to get into. So you're not dealing with any of the big distributors in the country, and more specifically here in Jersey. You've created your own distributorship. Talk about that and why.
So basically what we've learned from other small brands and some with successful exits, which is one day the goal, is to stay as small and nimble as long as we possibly can. So with that being said, some of the bigger dogs come along to a small brand maybe like ours. We've made enough of a splash that you're taking enough of their real estate or competing with their products that they're like, all right, we gotta get this guy out. And they'll come and say like, hey, let's do business together. We'll take 20,000 bottles, and you're all excited because you're like, oh shit, we're with XYZ distributor. We're with the big dogs. We made it. And then you hear horror stories of brands totally being tabled. They do the deal.
They buy it to shut it down.
They buy it to shut it down. They buy it to kill you. And we actually have friends with a rum brand down in Florida, and their business has, I think, gone down by a third since when they were doing their own business to engaging with a big dog. And now they're not scrambling, but that's a massive decline in business.
And now you have a contract with these people too to distribute it.
Exactly, and that's part of, you know, the nature of the beast, I guess, is our biggest, on top of the legality of each state, which is different and one of the headaches. I would say it's definitely the distributors, because some of them are even a little mafioso in terms of if your bar mat's out at a bar down in Key West, they'll come take it, throw it out, and put theirs back.
Yeah.
Little touch points like that you work so hard to build the rapport and finally get, and we're a startup. So for us to make, 100 bar mats is not a small expense. That's a big investment. That's a big touch point that we're expecting to work, and then someone comes and tosses it. So that's kind of what we're up against, and that's why it's important.
It's definitely the mafia here in Jersey too.
It's important for, I think, strategy-wise, is to build the rapport with the people. So if the people are asking for it, at their local, watering holes, their liquor stores they frequent, then when we go in or knock on the door or enough people have asked for it, it's, hey, people want, we'll take it, because they know that people are asking for it. So that's when people say, how can I help? I go, just ask for it. your local liquor store, you're hanging out at a bar. And it's fun to ask for it. So you guys have Jooicy Tits Vodka,
what the hell is that?
You're not going to get slapped, I promise. Mention the breast cancer piece, show them the bottle, and then you'll see the magic that happens.
That's a really genius thing you did. I don't know if that was afterwards or you did it before, but if you go Jooicy Tits Vodka and anybody says anything that's like, it's polarizing, we raise money for breast cancer. It's
exactly.
Like, oh, okay.
It lightens the blow, I say.
Yeah.
And again, knowing, an extension of myself, I always wanted to give back to things, whether it was my handbag brand or now this. It's just what was that right fit. And obviously breast cancer is the natural go-to for a brand like this. And on top of doing diligence in terms of the name and market research, I also did market research, so to speak, within the breast cancer community to make sure it was well received. And the women said, you're bringing levity to something so heavy. Yeah. And again, 9 out of 10 times, you had the blessing from that community. I said, that's it. It's a natural fit. And, you talk to a lot of people. We're always meeting amazing people. It's too many people that are impacted by it in one way or another.
Especially here in New York, New Jersey.
But when you talk to women who, they're so humbled by both their breasts being cut off or something like that, the word tits is not offensive to them anymore.
They don't care.
They don't care.
No.
So, it's nice that...
I would say most women and men are not offended by the word tits.
Right.
And if you are, you're like, something's went on in your life. I don't know. But I'll leave that for
we meet
discussion.
it in the most polite, not crass way possible. Again,
I don't get why it would be like a bad thing. I feel like we should go back to like 1970s and the 80s, like NASCAR girls, like why, like what, like we don't want men to like women or like think they're attractive, and women don't want men to think they're attractive. I get really lost in that.
It gets confusing now.
And I know it's a losing battle too for me, so I just shut my mouth. But it's like, no, I love the brand. I love everything you're doing with it.
Thank you.
What else do you look to do? Let's say 7 years from now you exit. What's your next piece? And I know that's hard to say while you're on the current one.
No, not at all. So I think I have that entrepreneurial mind that never, ever stops. So this is one of the many ideas.
Yeah.
This is the one we're focusing on right now. My boyfriend will tease me because I'm like, wait, I've got this idea for Boa. He goes, stay focused.
Yeah, you got ADHD like
got
me.
this right now. But again, it's just how my mind works. And anyone else
you see opportunity in everything.
Yeah. And, other people listening that think they're an entrepreneur, how do I start a business? I always say, like, what's a pain point? Like, what do you do in your day? And you're like, shit, I could do this better. This could be easier. This could be made stronger, lighter, whatever it is. Like, that's where innovation happens. Yep. It's pain points.
So how do you come up with a solution?
Yeah.
Solve someone's problem.
Yeah. And especially if it's your own, you can speak to it that much better.
Yeah. You can say it with some passion and get behind the brand.
Yep.
So there's a couple questions I like to ask people, right?
Okay.
The first question, and I always switch these up the last few episodes, but I want to kind of bring it back to the original setting. If there was anybody else you would like to thank, I know you thanked your parents. I know your boyfriend helps you a ton. Is there anybody else that was really instrumental in your life, and why?
I love that question. That's such a great question. I think my brothers and I were incredibly blessed to grow up with my grandparents literally 2 blocks down the street. And my grandma in particular came in the mornings, got us off to school. We went the 2 blocks down to their house for lunch every day, had a home-cooked, beautiful 5-course lunch. Kids are like, why are you going to grandparents' house again? It's like, because Grandpa makes ravioli with cheese that he hand-grated with love. So I was blessed to have super supportive grandparents that were instrumental in, I think, forming who we are and instilling in us true integrity and true character. And I think to be blessed by that, I think, last greatest generation was such a gift.
Yeah.
So I would say super, super lucky to have, 4 awesome grandparents.
I got another question off of that question.
Yep.
Why do you think that was the last greatest generation, and what has happened in society?
I think look at what they went through. Number one, to get here, and then to be proud to be here and to assimilate here, to still celebrate their cultures, but to be so proud to be Americans.
Yeah.
Like my grandfather, whose family came here, his last name was Ippolito, and he ended up changing my mom and their family's last name to Healy to be more American.
Yeah, to be more Irish?
To be more Irish, more American, but it's crazy that was the thought process in the day. But again, think about, we are the land of the American dream, and I think that's still very much alive and well. I just think it's not respected as much anymore.
Yeah, especially by the American kids that don't know how hard it is somewhere else.
Right, and I think that entitlement or not knowing how the rest of the world lives or hating capitalism. Meanwhile, they're drinking a $7 Starbucks and their Air Jordans shopping at Lululemon.
Yeah, but Starbucks has a trans pin. So, you know.
And again, that's the power of marketing.
Yeah.
You know, that's the interesting piece of it all. But I just think there was a pride in being American that, you know, we're starting to find again. And the fact, you know, there's pride in the American flag and there's pride for our troops. That's all. That's huge. That's so important. There's a reason the American flag's on our bottle. You know.
You give me chills. We're going to the golden age.
Proudly American. And
they instilled that in you.
Yep. Exactly.
That's a great answer. Probably one of the best ever.
Thank you.
Second question, right?
Okay.
And I know we talked a little bit about this earlier. Hey, you know, giving some advice to a young person. If you can narrow it down to one major thing that you would tell a young girl or guy that's launching a business, what would that be?
Go for it. Do it. You have nothing to lose. Go for it.
Yeah, I agree fully. Action. I tell people all the time, action, action, action.
Yep.
Well, Lauren, this is awesome.
Thank you.
You're always smiling. You're always having fun. You're always making good drinks.
Thank
the Jooicy
you.
Tits. However we can help the Fireside community, we're willing to help you and your employees. And thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure.
Absolutely.